Welcome into a new season of Ravens Unscripted, coming to you from our gorgeous new studios here at the Under Armour Performance Center. I'm Washburn, once again here on the Unscripted couch. Happy to be with you all season. And this year, we're going to try and keep things as fresh as possible with the latest reaction to each Ravens game, while also pointing our attention forward to the next opponent. And to help me do so much of the year, the brain trust of Ravens media. We've got Garrett Downing, Cliff Brown, and always Ryan Mink. And guys, always good to be with you. And Week 1, the Bills. Let's dive right into things with 4 downs, Garrett. You've seen this team all through training camp and the preseason. It's a group, as an organization, that's missed the postseason the last 3 years. As they're constituted right now, does this look to you like a playoff team?
Yeah, it does. I mean, really, I go back and I look at last season, and they were one play away from making the postseason, and it was a heartbreaking play. I'm sure everybody remembers that 49-yard touchdown. We try to erase that from our brains, but that's how last season ended, and I think that they're one play better than that. That's really all that they need to be. So I look at this offense, I think that they've added weapons around Joe Flacco, and I think here's the biggest thing. Joe Flacco's healthy. And that has made a big difference compared to where we were at this point last year, where Joe Flacco was taking the field for the first time. So, yeah, I think that this team is much better than they were last season, and I think they're going to be back in the postseason.
To me, it's that the offense is dramatically better. I expect this to be probably a top 15, potentially top 10 offense. The defense is as good, if not better, than it was last year. You put those two things together, I think it's going to be tough to keep pace with this Ravens team.
Yeah, I have some questions, too, about the other teams in the AFC North, which certainly is going to determine a lot whether the Ravens get into the playoffs or not. I think there's more question marks about the Steelers. I know they're going to score, but I'm questioning their defense. And yes, the Ravens offense, you have to like what you've seen in the preseason. And yes, they have so many veterans on defense. I think the motivation, too, of not making the playoffs the last 3 years, everyone knows how big of a season this is for the Ravens. I think that's going to work in their favor.
Ryan, and sorry, Garrett, to cut you off, but with what the offense has done in the offseason, most notably the wide receiver upgrade, is that as simple as to say that makes this a much better offense, or are there other factors involved to why many, including a lot of you guys on this couch, feel like this is a better unit?
Well, I think the biggest factor is Joe Flacco. I mean, he's the starting quarterback. He is the key that starts the engine. And so I think him being healthier makes a massive difference. And it's just confidence. I mean, I feel like this offense went into last season really with almost no confidence. Joe didn't practice at all throughout training camp, didn't play in the preseason at all. They were totally out of sync when the season began. Now they built that up in the second half of last year when they were a pretty good offense, and they've only continued that through the offseason with the signings of the wide receivers, with drafting Hayden Hurst, with drafting Lamar Jackson. Then they go out and you have good practices, you have good preseason games. It's all been like a snowball effect for this offense, and I think really can lead to some big things.
I think you look through pretty much every position on this team, particularly on the offense, and they're pretty much better than where they were last year. Joe, healthy, so he's better. The wide receiving group, Michael Crabtree, John Brown, Willie Snead, I think is a better group than Mike Wallace, Jeremy Maclin, and Brashad Perriman. You look at the tight ends. I know Hayden Hurst is going to start the season injured, but when he gets back, he's a better pass-catching tight end than the Ravens had last year, even with Benjamin Watson, the veteran. He's a more explosive player. And then running back. They know who their starting running back is going into the season. Alex Collins was on the practice squad at this point last year. So playmakers, both as a running back, tight end, and receivers, I think the Ravens are better across the board offensively.
Third down here, Cliff. The concern you have heading into Week 1 is what?
Well, the depth of the offensive line and really the continuity of the offensive line. We haven't seen the Ravens starting offensive line all preseason. That could be a factor as far as them working well as a unit. And across the league, I think all teams have problems with offensive line depth. And the Ravens, I would not exclude them from that picture at all. If anything happens to one of their starters, do they have enough guys to step in and do the job? And once your offensive line starts to break down, then the fact that Joe Flacco is playing better, that starts to deteriorate. He doesn't have time to throw. You can't run the football, so that would be my biggest concern.
I think it's Jimmy Smith's 4-game absence to open the season. Really, when you go back and look at the Ravens defenses over the past several years since Jimmy's been here, there's been the Ravens defense with Jimmy Smith, and there's been the Ravens defense without him. And look, I do think that they're better equipped this year to handle his loss, and I know it's only a 4-game absence to open the season, but I have to see this defense play at a higher level without him before I'm totally confident that they can withstand being with him being on the sidelines to open the season.
Whenever I talk to people about this, you're just on the playground with other dads talking about this kind of stuff, and they say, how good are the Ravens going to be? I say, they're going to be good, but they also face a lot of really good teams. And so I think it's the competition. Last year, there's no bones about it. They got kind of fortuitous in that they played the Green Bay Packers without Aaron Rodgers. They played the Colts without Andrew Luck. It goes on and on and on. They missed a lot of top quarterbacks. This year, I'm not sure that you can get so lucky. And when you look at the two divisions that they face, the entire divisions, you got the NFC South. That's a really strong division with the Saints. You got the Falcons there, the Bucks, the Panthers on the road. That's a tough division. And the AFC West. Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos, all good teams. So I think the Ravens have a really tough schedule this year that even though they're a better team, they got to get over some really other good teams.
Is your answer that long on the playground? 'Cause otherwise, I might not be able to
depends on how
view
much
my
fun.
kid.
Yeah, it depends on how much fun the kid's having. Is he on the swings or is he on the slide, you know?
He's on the slide. Don't talk to my kid at the playground. Fourth down here, Garrett, your view of the Buffalo Bills. This is a team with a new quarterback at the helm and Nathan Peterman, a guy we saw last year, played in a couple games, but the indelible image is probably that 5 interceptions in one half against the Chargers. What are your early impressions about what this Ravens team faces in Week 1?
Well, it's kind of funny because I think everybody from the Ravens' perspective is looking at this game locally and saying this is a win for the Ravens. The Ravens are 7-point favorites, and I think that's about right. But at the same time, the Bills made the postseason last year. I mean, I don't think we should forget that. And the big
How'd they
difference,
make it, by the way?
Yeah, I know.
We
Don't get me
forgot
started
about
on
that.
that. Don't get me
He keeps bringing it back
I
up,
know,
too.
it's painful. But obviously the quarterback's different. And I think that the Ravens, this is a game that the Ravens should win. Nathan Peterman is a quarterback, like you said, threw 5 interceptions. I don't really feel like he's somebody that scares people, scares teams around the league. I do think this should be a win for the Ravens, but I do think it's worth noting that the Bills were a postseason team last year.
And they still have the Sean McCoy clip.
They do, and I think Week 1 is highly unpredictable anyway. I mean, you think you know what's going to happen, but we haven't seen the best or worst of any team in the preseason. They do so much to hide everything that they're going to do that Week 1 has a lot of X factors in it going in that you don't know about. But I would certainly believe the Ravens are a better team than the Bills. It is hard to believe when I look back that the Bills were the team that made the playoffs and the Ravens weren't, because I think the Ravens were better than the Bills last year. It doesn't always matter who's the best team, but head-to-head, I think the Ravens just have too many weapons, being at home, too much excitement about this game. And also, Peterman, he may be better than last year, but how much better is he really? I think they'll get some turnovers against this
10
guy.
seconds on the Bills, Mink.
Well, I think John Harbaugh said it best. It's not how you start the season, it's how you finish it. But I'll keep this short. If the Ravens don't beat the Bills at home to begin the season, I'm going to be concerned.
That's a playground answer from Ryan Mink. We're knocking the rust off here on Unscripted, but coming up, we dive into social media with Retweet or Delete. Welcome back into Ravens Unscripted. It's time for our favorite prop game, Retweet or Delete. I guess after they paid for the studios, we were still able to afford these cardboard props. So how this works is I'm going to be able to read some Ravens-related tweets, and you guys are going to either endorse it, agree with the idea with a retweet, or disagree with a delete. And our first tweet comes from Andy Benoit of Sports Illustrated, and he had some strong words for the Ravens wide receiver corps, saying, "It was upgraded a tad, but not altered enough. Crabtree is the new Macklin. Brown is the new Wallace. Snead is the new Campanaro." Whew. Scorching take on the wide receivers. I'd love to see Ravens media here with their thoughts. We got deletes across the board. And I'm a guy outside the building. I would have to agree. But, Mink, I'll let you take first crack at Benoit of Sports Illustrated.
I mean, this is a gross exaggeration. I get the premise, okay? All three of these guys are coming off of down years. And I know we're all really excited about them, but Ravens fans are really excited about Jeremy Maclin last year, and it obviously didn't work out. So you have to temper your excitement, but no, that's just not the case. I think we obviously have seen what Michael Crabtree has done in this league for years. I mean, it's not like Jeremy Maclin where he'd had one standout season and a half a standout season. Crabtree's done it year after year. John Brown, we've seen it all offseason in practice. This dude is way better than a lot of the league thinks he is. I think he's going to have a breakout season. And Campanaro to Willie Snead. Campanaro played in how many games? I mean, he was injured for almost his entire career. Willie Snead, just by virtue of being on the field, is going to be better, I think, than Campanaro.
Yeah, I wouldn't call any of the Ravens' new additions at wide receiver on the downside of their career. I definitely thought that Maclin was. As far as Campanaro, he never really got his career started because of the injury. So I think the comparisons are way off. The only constant is the change, and the Ravens had to do something after last year. So to me, you could almost criticize them, if you wanted to, for making all these changes, but it was something that had to be done. And this time, I think they got it right.
Hey, Garrett, if you're going to disagree, and we got the rating game coming up, but if you had to quantify how much better you think each of these guys may be than their previous version, is it a considerable amount?
I think that it is. I mean, look at Willie Snead. I think we're all agreeing there. I mean, this is a guy that would put up big numbers earlier in his career in New Orleans, and I understand that's a pass-heavy offense, but Campanaro never put up big numbers during his time here. Michael Crabtree, he's been in the league for 10 years, has 25 touchdowns over the past 3 seasons. That's an upgrade. And then John Brown, I mean, I think nationally people are kind of sleeping on him, and I understand it because he's had 2 injury-riddled seasons, but this is a guy who was a 1,000-yard receiver in Arizona. When he's been healthy, he's been good. It's not been an ability question with him. It's been an availability question with him. And as long as he's able to be on the field, and he seems like all indications are that he's put some of the health issues behind him, then he's going to be a good player. So I think this is a remarkably improved group. And I just listen to what Joe Flacco says. You can tell in listening to him and talk about this group that he feels so much better about the weapons that he has around him. He's not going to go out there and bash his former teammates. He never will. He's not that kind of guy. But he clearly feels better about this group than he has in the past.
All right, let's move on to our next tweet, and it's from Jeff Zrebeck of The Athletic, a guy we know here in Baltimore. Installing Robert Griffin III as the Ravens' number 2 QB makes sense, at least for now. Cliff, I'll let you get first crack at this one. Do you retweet or delete? I guess we'll go across the board with the retweet or delete, and Cliff, you'll start us off. Oh, man.
I'll explain.
Wait, no. Before we get, you got to pick one.
You
got to pick one. All right, I'll let you go.
Here's the thing with my explanation on this. He is the number 2 quarterback. If Joe Flacco were to get hurt and miss an extended period of time, he would be the guy that would come in there and step in if he had to play 4 games. Let's say Joe Flacco injures his knee or something like that, and he's got to play for 4 games. But in terms of the number 2 quarterback who's active on game days, that to me is going to be Lamar Jackson. It's not RG3. So I think that you've got to kind of look at it with some nuance here. It's not a gross retweet or delete, because I think you got to.
You're taking it game by game.
I think you got to look at it whether it's a short-term injury or whether it's a long-term situation, and also who's going to be active on game day. And I think Lamar Jackson is going to be active on game day.
Yeah, I think as long as Lamar Jackson is healthy, he's the one who will be activated. You won't see RG3 activated if both Joe and Lamar are healthy. So how can you call RG3 the number 2 quarterback in that situation? I also think it's debatable if Joe were to go down for a game or 2, particularly later in the season, which guy they would go to. I think right now it would be RG3, but later on as Lamar develops, and if he shows he's a playmaker with his legs and can make a few plays throwing the football, even if Joe sprained his ankle and win a game or 2, I'm not necessarily sure they wouldn't go with Lamar, because to me he's such a dynamic weapon with his legs. You'd have to consider getting him on the field.
How much he developed over the course of a season as a backup is something we can continue to debate. But last tweet here, it's prediction week. This is from Good Morning Football, the NFL Network. Who will be the 2018 Defensive Player of the Year? Kyle Brandt forecast that it would be C.J. Mosley, with a dominant force in the middle of that Ravens defense. Let's see across the board if we're retweeting or deleting that idea. Mink, you get the long version here of why you don't think it sounds like C.J. Mosley will be Defensive Player of the Year. C.J., if you're listening.
Yeah, I'm glad I get to go long on this one. Look, C.J. is a great player, and I think he's going to be a guy that ends up playing here for a long time. I think he's going to get extended. But he's an inside linebacker, and he's not a splash kind of player. You know, I mean, he's a pretty mild-mannered guy. He's not somebody that really moves the meter all that much in the national scene. Luke Kuechly gets a lot more attention as an inside linebacker than does C.J. Mosley. I agree. Oftentimes, the Defensive Player of the Year will come from a really good defense overall, but I just think that the Rams have an excellent defense if you're looking at really good defense in the league, and they have star power in Aaron Donald, the returning Defensive Player of the Year. I think there's other guys that are just going to get more attention, put up more splash plays in terms of sacks or in terms of interceptions than C.J. Mosley will.
I think the buzz needs to start early. I like Good Morning Football talking about this. You need to get kind of on that national stage. In the locker room today, C.J. Mosley has on his locker taped his goals for the season. Wants to lead the league in tackles, wants to lead all linebackers interceptions, wants to go first team All-Pro, wants to make another Pro Bowl for the 4th time in 5 years, and wants to be defensive MVP. Defensive MVP and Super Bowl MVP are on the list.
Improved Ryan Mink wrong was on the list as well.
That's actually first. Yeah.
Coming up on Unscripted, it's the rating game. Stay with us. Welcome back to Ravens Unscripted. Time for the rating game. This week, it's more the numbers game. I'm going to present some Ravens-related statements, and I'll ask the panel to put a number next to their opinion. So, guys, first up, How many snaps do you think Lamar Jackson will get in Week 1 against the Buffalo Bills? 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Ooh, the big reveal. We've got a 3, a 6, and an 8. So, Mink, you're seeing him on the field, not for a lot of the game, but for more than these guys.
Yeah, I went with 8 is his jersey number. So that makes sense a lot, too.
That just devalued your entire opinion. He's into numerology.
Look, here's the thing. I'm not saying he's going to get the ball 8 times, but he will be on the field 8 times. You have to run him as a decoy if any of the trick stuff is going to work, right? So I think they want to get that out there. I think he's only going to get the ball maybe closer to 3, right? But you want to give everybody around the league a look, especially the Bengals. Thursday night, short week, give him a lot to think about. So you use him as a decoy.
No zero, though. You guys have him active and in this game at some point.
I do. I think he'll play a little bit, but I actually think the Ravens are going to be leading this game, and I don't think they're going to need to throw too much out there. I don't think you necessarily spoil and ruin the fact that you can. I don't necessarily need to give the Bengals something to think about. If you do that,
spoil it.
You let the cat out of the bag.
You don't have a weapon like Lamar to me, and don't even put him out there. He's out there for some, if not as many as Ryan said.
All right, scale 1 to 10, 10 being Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco. Where do you guys feel like his play will land this season? We need the Jeopardy music in between. Ooh, 8s across the board. Cliff, you're the one and only for this one.
Well, Joe, as everyone has already said, looks great during the preseason. I like the new weapons. He's healthy. And yes, if the Ravens are going to be a playoff team, he has to play 7 or 8. If he's down in 6-5 territory, the Ravens to me are not going to make the playoffs. But I have every confidence that Joe, the way he's looking and talking about his new weapons, and I think the Ravens will have a good running game, and I think their defense will produce turnovers. That all adds up to him having a really good year.
All right, let's flip the side of the ball. 32 teams in the NFL. Where do you guys feel like 1 through 32 the Ravens defense will rank this season? Okay, 5, 5, and 3. So, Garrett, I'll let you go here. Everybody can get their shot at this, but you've got a top 5 defense, again, for a group that has a lot of continuity heading into the season.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, with the exception of Jimmy Smith being absent to start the season, you've got every starter back across the board. And I also think that the move to Wink Martindale is going to help this group. Just listen to what these players have said all offseason. Eric Weddle and Terrell Suggs being at the top of the list for me. They've spoken glowingly about Wink Martindale and the changes that he's brought to this group. I think that this is going to be a ball-hawking group. I think that they're going to be better in late-game situations. Just across the board, I think this defense is really good.
Can I add this real quick? Last year, the first 4 draft picks were all on defense. We were so excited. Now they've had a year to mature. You've got a lot of good young players.
You had them at 5.
In the locker room, you kind of get the sense that they're going to like the freedom that they're going to get defensively this year. And they have so many players who are used to this system now, guys like Tony Jefferson. I think they'll feel more comfortable and they'll have the opportunity to make more big plays.
Fans, friendly reminder, there are still tickets available for the home opener against the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. Head to BaltimoreRavens.com/tickets for more information. Guys, that'll do it for this episode of Ravens Unscripted. 1 in the books, so many more to come. A healthy and friendly reminder as well. We will be live on Facebook on Monday to react to everything from this Bills game and also get you set for the Thursday night game in Cincinnati. That's also on the Ravens mobile app as well. Thanks so much for stopping by, guys. Always a lot of fun. We'll see you next week.